On the next episode of BTS with the CMO, we are hanging out with Karandeep Singh Kapany, Duolingo's regional marketing director. We'll dive into his Cannes line triumph, his secret sauce for blending global flair with local charm. I'm Devika Titness from Rocketium, and let's get started. Karan, you've climbed the marketing ladder as a regional marketing director at Duolingo. So, being one of the few Indians to come on Cannes line, can you tell me about your experience? It sounds like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it was quite surreal, to be honest with you. Like, I was one in 5 Indians selected to present a talk, and wasn't expecting it, to be honest. And when we got the call and we started discussing, one of the reasons that they picked us was because they felt that the work that we're doing in India is very interesting from a global perspective, because we are part of a global brand. And apart from the global campaigns that we do in India, we're also personalizing content for the Indian audiences really well. And they highlighted the launch that we did in West Bengal, the launch that we did in Andhra Pradesh and Telugu, and the general content that we put out. And they loved how a global brand is able to personalize at country level. And that was one of the reasons why they wanted us to be there and share some of our learnings with the larger team, larger audience. Uh, when I got, the final official thing, I was excited, but it was like, it's still far away in the future. We'll think about it. And I was flying into Cannes directly from the US, where we had a Duoversity, which is like an anniversary of Duolingo. And so I was flying. It's only when I reached France and went to Cannes is when I realized that it's a proper fair, right? It's people are all over. You've got some of the biggest names in the industry just randomly moving around. You've got Hollywood celebrities. The whole aura of that place is a little intimidating. And it's a very pretty city. It's generally, as a tourist, if you would ever go there. But I felt like the first 3 days that I was there, I was just so nervous. And I was like, don't mess this up, don't mess this up, don't mess this up. And everywhere in Cannes, they say, this is your moment, the world is watching. That did not put me at ease at all. I was even more nervous than like, oh shoot, the whole world is watching. So I think I was very, very nervous when we were approaching. I was like, oh my God, this is... But I don't know, like we were discussing before, right? As a public speaker, I've been taught that embrace the nervousness. And I was feeling nervous till the point of time that I stepped off the stage. And somehow, as soon as I did that, the nervousness just vanished. And I give a lot of credit to the audience that was there in the room that day. I was met with these huge smiles of people and very young, welcoming crowd. It's almost like they were cheering us before we even started. And this is again because of the love for Duolingo, right? Not because nobody knew us. It's just because of Duolingo. And we were like, the nervousness just evaporated. And then I was in my element. It went off really, really bad.
Could you take me behind the scenes when you are brainstorming for these things, right? So, when I started my career with CNBC and NDTV, a lot of it was weekly shows, right? We used to get these products and tech products. I used to run a tech show. At that point, we would get those products. We would see what has recently been launched, then get some sort of context on whether or not this product will work, and then we would go into review and we would do that, right? As things moved forward from television to digital, we got a lot of numbers, and we used to analyze a lot. How is this product doing? Which demographic? There was a lot of focus on data versus just having the wildest and wackiest creative idea, right? Could you take me behind the scenes from you? How did your creative thinking start? What were kind of brainstorming sessions you would do? How does it look today? What are some of the elements that you must have when you're thinking of your next big idea?
Well, I feel that's also something which has changed quite a bit over a period of time. And I think it also matters on which industry you're in, what budgets you have.
Yeah.
And how...
We never had any budgets.
Yeah, that's exactly.
No
budget. Like startups, you been on that side. For me, it was actually different because I was in Tanishq.
Yeah.
Massive budgets.
Of course.
Right? Like you could literally have people do brainstorming for you.
You're the spoiled brat.
Yeah, you're the spoiled brat.
Marketing.
100%. And I have a lot of love for Titan. Like I feel like it's a part of my heart which will always stay in Titan. My first job, I love the people, the
Yeah.
culture, the ethos, and it taught me a lot.
Right.
But what I also learned later on is that as soon as you move out of Titan, and I moved to a small startup with like very little budget,
Yeah.
like we're talking fractions. Uh, I realized that all the great things that Titan had taught me is amazing, but now I have to unlearn a lot of that.
Yeah.
Right? Because now I don't have budgets to hire agencies to do quality research and quantity research. Research means Karan is taking a
Yeah.
paper and pen and he's like, "Ha, sir, what do you feel about this app?" Right?
Yeah.
And same thing with ideation and brainstorming.
Correct.
What I've also realized is that a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, a certain amount of restriction, whether it is through budget, whether it is through people, whether it is through any type, sometimes it gives you better work.
Yes, I agree. I completely. Yeah.
So, you also tend to get a little complacent when you've got all of these
And
things. You don't use your own head as much as you should be.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a choice and you have to put out something, means you will put out something, right? And sometimes it will work, it will not work. I feel the big difference or big change which has happened in brainstorming has been how we've been able to evaluate success. So while earlier you would put out a television ad and your brainstorming would be around insights about consumers and whether you feel that it's working, your window of evaluating success could be sometimes as long as 6 months.
Right.
So for a wedding campaign, we eventually ended up releasing an ad, a very sweet ad, and we saw success maybe 6 months later when we started seeing wedding share overall. But when you come to the tech side, you can literally see, like for example, in Duolingo, if you're brainstorming, you're putting out an idea, I would probably know within the first 2 hours whether this idea does it have feet,
Okay.
or is it dead on arrival. Sometimes it picks up a lot later,
Right.
so not completely ruling it out. But the speed at which you can experiment is a lot faster.
Got it.
And what that allows you is that there's a lot more meritocracy.
Yeah.
Because somebody can give you an idea.
Yeah.
You're not constrained by budget.
Right.
Because the way we shoot is with an iPhone.
Right.
You've got the duo suit, who's doing funny things, and we're shooting it on an iPhone. And it's not like, the cost of production is too high. We have to choose between 3 ideas, or we can only do 1 idea. So if somebody who is, let's say, just joined and is, not 100% sure of their idea, but we still think it's got some merit, let's test it out.
Yeah.
Put it out there, and if that idea works, not only do you have an idea which has worked and you can build on that and learn from that, but that person has now got a lot more confidence.
Correct.
And you will hear their voice a lot louder
Yeah.
next time when they're pitching an idea. And I think that is invaluable,
Yeah.
which wasn't the case earlier.
Yeah. But let's take you to the college days. What are some of the stories that you can tell us, which probably you're not supposed to tell us?
First of all, thank you so much. It's been very kind. But if you go back to college, I did my MBA at MICA, which is a very unconventional B school. It wasn't even called a B school till quite recently. It was a C school, School of Communication. And the best thing about MICA was its diversity. It wasn't a typical B school where you only had engineers who only wanted to work in investment banks or consultation agencies. You had people who were coming from backgrounds such as arts, commerce, engineers, obviously. And in that, we found a very nice cohort of people. And obviously, as with every college student, you get around to doing stuff which you probably are quite embarrassed to admit to later on in life. I'd say where MICA really helped us out was in exposing us to a worldview which was very different from what you conventionally get.
Right.
I'm from Chandigarh, it's a small town, as you also spent some time over there. For a kid like me to come to college and then be exposed to so much, and MICA was also very good about how they made you learn.
Right.
There was a lot of emphasis placed on show and tell. So for example, we had this amazing professor called Matthew, AF Matthew, and he used to teach us sociology. Now sociology itself is a very different subject. It's not a very conventional subject to teach to MBA grads. But the way he would teach sociology would be through cinema. So he would be exposed to world cinema at the time, and there was no Netflix for us. There was no, exposure to such things at that time. And I remember seeing Korean films, Japanese films, French films, and every film would leave you speechless. I remember distinctly after watching the film, all of us students would just bow down our heads, just kind of grappling in our heads with what we've just seen, walk to our rooms and not want to talk to anybody else for the next 2 hours. Because you were just digesting what you've just seen. They weren't like light fluff films, they were all very serious films. And each of those films would have a message which Matthew would try to talk about in terms of how human beings react, how they interact with other human beings. And for a kid at that age, who's at a very impressionable age, and comes from a very limited context about the world, it just opens up your mind like nothing else.
Is that you speak about film, you speak about creative thinking. I'm wondering if that informed your recent campaign with Tollywood, where you had Duolingo's Owl. That was a very cool campaign. I think everybody really resonated with that. What was the thought behind it? How did it start?
Thank you for saying that. So we were launching a language course. So learn English from Telugu, and that's part of our broader strategy.
Right.
Because to win in India, you can't just teach English from Hindi. You have to teach all these local languages. And so Andhra Pradesh and Telangana are important markets for us. And Telugu was the second Indic course, third Indic course if you count Hindi as the first one that we launched. So the first one was Hindi, then Bengali, and then Telugu. And when we went to Andhra Pradesh and Telangana and met the people over there, we realized something that they were very different from, let's say, the Bengali population. It would have been the easiest thing for me to just copy paste the Bengali campaign, which again was based on a really nice insight, and just copy paste, put it in Andhra Pradesh. The people are very different. The mindset is very different. They like to live life, king size or queen size, as the case may be. Cinema is a very big part of their life. Some of their Tollywood actors are like demigods. The level of love that they have is like a family member. It's nothing less than a family member, and a respected family member at that. And so when we went in there, we had a lot of agencies pitching into us. One of the ideas that came about was this, larger than life again, taking from the insight of Tollywood. It's like one of the ideas was, let's just paint the largest hand painted duo and like assemble that in Hyderabad.
Right.
And the idea seemed preposterous in the initial stages, right? There's a safety issue. They wanted to break the Guinness Book of World Record, the largest hand painted thing. Second, there were logistical issues. I was surprised to know, because I always thought that this is common. But hand painting posters is pretty much a dead art. There's nobody around who's doing that. At one time, Bangalore itself had 17 studios.
Right.
In and around MG Road, who would do this, and the biggest clientele would be politicians, Rajni, Kant kind of movies, and but it was a very thriving business. Right now, we struggle to find one studio who could do it at this level.
Oh wow!
And most of the people in that studio were people who owned their own studios and now have started working for this studio. And so we started that. That was part of like a shock and awe kind of a campaign. We said, let's just put this out there. At Duolingo, one of our key strategies is to be social first. So whatever we do needs to have a very big social pull to it. Meaning, I can put out a hoarding or a banner or TV ad. That's not enough. People seeing it is not enough. People talking about it on social media is what we really want. And so putting this 60-foot tall hand-painted thing, wearing a veshti and the traditional attire, it was loved like you wouldn't believe. We had crowds of people coming in, taking photographs, and without us incentivizing it or talking about it or telling them to do it, putting it on social media. One of the challenges that we face as Duolingo is that it's a global brand. It's not like, an Indian, make in India. It's not like that.
Yeah.
And so to be seen as your own is a little bit more challenging. But when you do something like this, people accept you.
Yeah.
Because you are coming to them and talking to them not only in their language, but in a tone which they that's the tone that they use.
Yeah.
That's what they love.
Got it.
And when you do that, they love you back. So, and that's what we saw with the language launch. It was one of the more successful language launches in India.
One of the things that really stand out for Duolingo is how you've used personalization in your marketing tactics, right? You've taken it to another level, which is why you were also invited to Karan to come and Can, right?
Can.
Yeah, I mean, that controversy, I don't know. Emily in Paris helps you understand that a little more. You've talked a lot about how you get attention in this total hyper-personalized world. Would you speak a little more to that?
So that's like a challenge which you have to solve for now. The days of one television ad for the entire country or the entire world at one point, that they're dead. Those days are gone. It's not coming back. And I can give you an example, which is not even a recent example from, I can come back to Duolingo, but I'll give you an example of Tanishq, which is where I was in the marketing team. That was my first job. And Tanishq used to have a wedding campaign, and we used to launch a wedding collection. And that wedding collection used to be the same collection for the entire country. And we used to wonder why Tanishq sales for wedding, or the Tanishq share of wedding, is much lower than, let's say, rival jewelers. And after a lot of research, what we realized is that, while Sangeet and all the other festivals or ceremonies are still, they have a little bit of an infusion of modernity and contemporary, whatever's going on. But for the wedding, the jewelry has to be extremely traditional.
Yeah.
And we used to do one collection for the entire country. Right? That was the mode in which Tanishq was operating in at that time. So this was one of my first projects in the marketing team. It was to, I was in a CFT with design, with the production team, with sales team, and we try to understand what will it take for us to break into the wedding share. And what we realized is that you cannot have one collection for the country. You need to go to Punjab and be able to offer what Punjabis wear for their wedding. You need to come to Andhra Pradesh and give what people from that state need for their wedding. And the jewelry is completely different. The pilot was in Andhra Pradesh, and we realized that there are waist pairs and armband and stuff that you wear in your head. And people from these two states, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, the amount of gold that they have during their weddings is insane. It's enough to put any Punjabi or Marwadi to shame, right? The amount of gold that's there at the wedding, and it's part of the ceremony, right? And that was, one of the first instances where I realized that, it might seem obvious now, but at that time it wasn't. That you need to talk to everybody in a very different manner, and that's one of the reasons for success of some of these smaller jewelers, because they know their communities really well. So it's not even enough to say Kerala wedding. It's like in that there are like 5 different subdivisions for which they will prepare. And with the passage of time, and as internet has really it's become very accessible, it's one of the cheapest data costs in the world, with smartphones proliferation in the country, that personalization has now become hyper personalization. It's not even enough to do like, oh, Punjabi, because no, it's Karandeep Singh Kapany and present to me, and that's where AI is so important. Algorithms kind of show you a feed which is different from a feed which somebody in my house is seeing, right? And so at Duolingo, what we try to do, especially since we're talking to the Gen Z, and Gen Z is very particular. They don't stand or tolerate any sort of nonsense. What we try to do is to not advertise as much as put out good content. Because our hope or our hypothesis is that when they see good content, they will share it. More people will see it, and you get that level of brand awareness. But also, it makes them see you as a cool brand and wants them to know you a little bit better. And so it's a little bit of a longer pull. It's not as direct as, let's say, performance marketing. Where I put out an ad and I'm like, okay, this ad has gotten me X number of new users, so great.
Got it.
It's a bit longer, but I think it pays out a lot more in the long term.
Got it. So what I can hear is there's a lot of thinking through an idea, a lot of data that is involved in it, a lot of research, etc. At what point do you, and there's a lot of pressure, right? Because the campaigns need to go on weekly basis, monthly basis, all of that. So at what point do you decide that this needs to go deeper and thought through, or this needs to be just spice it up as it goes, or that trend is gone all over?
That's a great question. It's something we grapple with on a daily basis. There are 2 types of campaigns that we are doing. One is a reactive content, which is we have a cool, crazy idea. It doesn't need too much of time to shoot and produce and put out. And then you've got planned content. So planned and reactive, these are the 2 buckets that we deal with. And we keep changing the ratio. But what we've seen now is that reactive content typically does a lot better, at least for us in India. And some of the reasons for that is that you can put out a lot more of reactive content. one thing which has happened in this larger social ecosystem is that attention spans have obviously reduced, but also the lifespan of a content piece has reduced. Meaning, 7 years, 10 years ago, you would have had one piece which would go viral,
Right.
but then it would stay viral as
Right.
it traveled through different economic strata or geographic strata of the country.
Right.
Meaning the early adopters see it, and then your parents would see it, and then somebody else would see it. So it would stay viral for maybe like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Now you're lucky if it stays viral for more than 2 days. So if you've got planned content, your ability to keep that on for like unplanned content typically is not a day content. Right?
Yeah.
It's stretched over a period because you're putting in. So, and this is one of those older, more traditional ways of thinking about content. So I'm putting in so much of effort and time and months of planning, so I want it to be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
People are not going to be bothered for it,
Right.
no matter how great that piece of content is. So our best successes on planned content also come
Right.
and it's like sharp. A day, 2 days, and then we're out. So we put in all of that effort, but we put it very, very sharply in those 2 days, and then we're out and we're on to the next thing. Then that takes a life of its own and hopefully goes viral.
Karan, basically, Duolingo is a global brand, right? Are there any campaigns that has worked in the US and you have taken them to India and localized them? How do you go about building those campaigns locally?
Right. So there are always campaigns which we conceptualize at a global level, and some campaigns have a very distinct US or let's say a Western context to them. So I'll give you an example. We do April Fool's Day campaigns like every year, very successful campaigns. And the last one that we did was a Duolingo on Ice campaign, where we put out visuals that Duo is going to be on, ice skating. There's a separate suit made just for that. There are a lot of these figure skaters all around, beautiful visuals. And the whole thing was a play on Broadway on ice, or Disney on ice, and where you've got these musicals and you've got these skaters and ice rinks and you're watching that. In fact, it's so successful globally that some of the songs that we've done, like Spanish or Vanish, have they're now multi-million impressions on YouTube, and listens on Spotify. And what's interesting is that now in an Indian context, in a warm tropical country like India, ice rinks don't exist. So at two levels, right? That one is a Broadway, which is, all of our movies are musicals. So we don't have a separate thing which is like a Broadway or a musical theme. And at the second, ice rinks are kind of alien.
Right.
99.9% of Indians, right? And so some of those ideas don't translate very well in India and some of the other countries. And so there is a lot of emphasis on local marketing, and that's one of our primary jobs, which is to find what are some of the things which connect with people, and then create content around that and use that for your social media awareness or brand awareness. The recent campaign that we did with Lily, we were again getting the Lily suit, and we wanted to launch her in a big way. And we thought Valentine's Day is like the perfect opportunity. Now, like Duo is unhinged, Lily's got a I don't care attitude. Even the Lily suit is a smirk, almost like I'm too cool for this. And so the way we decided to do this was by having Lily do an anti-Valentine's Day campaign, because that's a time when every brand is being lovey-dovey and mushy, and they're just trying different takes on the same thing. Like, let's just change it, and we had Lily do like a complete I don't want any of this. And the context of that is that Lily is super popular in China, where she is seen as this icon. She's actually more popular in China than more popular than Duo in China. And all of these young Gen Z girls look up to Lily. That's the kind of
role model.
I want. That's the kind of role model I want. Sassy and smart, and I don't want to be like everybody else. And so we try to tap into that. So while something like a US campaign might not, like Rolling on Ice, might not have worked directly, but we will take inspiration from, let's say, what China is doing and say, you know what, Lily is a role model for all of these girls over there. Can we try something similar in India? And then try and brainstorm around ideas for that particular thing.
I know you've expressed a lot of disdain for lazy marketing. And from the work that you've done at Duo, you can see that that's absolutely not what you guys do. So how do you ensure that you are not getting into marketing that's just bad? How do you really hit that sweet spot And most of the times you do hit that sweet spot. How do you do that?
Uh,
What is the secret sauce?
I guess like to understand what what I call lazy marketing is complacent marketing. That generally happens when you're not really invested in what you do. Right? Too much of money, you're doing campaigns just for the sake of it because there's a calendarized thing and you have to do a certain campaign at a certain time of the year. And a lot of times you just end up borrowing your older ideas. So if I see a campaign and you're basically just playing on the same trope that you did last year and the year before that, to me that is the laziest of all marketing, and I personally I find it very distasteful.
Right.
You're wasting resources and you're taking your audience for granted. How we try to avoid that, or how we try to make sure that we don't do that, is primarily by keeping like our team is very young. All Gen Zs, or most of them are Gen Zs, and I've realized that working for a brand which is directly talking to Gen Zs in India, you need to have Gen Zs in the room. They have, it's almost like a passion against repeating themselves.
Right.
They've got their own individuality and reflects in their work, and that's what makes their work so special. And they just hate repeating themselves again and again.
Right.
And so I feel one is, if you've got too much of budget and too much of resources at your disposal, and you have to do something just because somebody's telling you to do it, you're not invested in it. And that leads to a lot of lazy marketing that we see. So you'll see these TV ads and just doing it for the heck of it. Or if you've got a team which is very jaded and you're like, okay, what is new? So I remember this one colleague of mine at Tanishq, Sanobar, and these are early days of my marketing career, and this is one thing which I learned from her, which is in every meeting with an agency, she would start it by saying, I don't want to hear an idea which you've talked about before.
Got it.
In every campaign, she would like, what is the new thing that we're doing in this campaign? Because Tanishq has got like a regular calendar, like Akshaya Tritiya, Dhanteras, summer sale, winter sale, and all of that. You can't change that. That's big moments for the company. So in every one of those occasions, she would say, what is the one thing that is new this time that we're doing? I think that's a great way to avoid staleness in marketing.
Your recent Can talk is something that all marketers in India dream of, right? Like marketers across the globe dream of. It's like the pinnacle of success, right? I don't know why you're working anymore. You're retiring right now. How do you think that talk informed to the India story?
I think at multiple levels, it had an impact. So one is that was a great validation of the kind of work that we are doing. That was appreciated both by the team at Duolingo internally and as in India as well as internationally. Got a lot of praise for it, as well as being able to put out what India is doing to a global stage, right? Like I said, there's a lot of personalization, and India is a very tough market for marketers, right? Because every state is like a separate country. What will work in Bengal will not work in Tamil Nadu, for example. And so the ability or the opportunity to do that was immense. The other thing is that you also feel like a lot of love for the brand. There's a lot of responsibility you feel as a result of that. Because when I would tell people that you get a speaker badge thing you're wearing, so people generally ask you, so which brand you working for and all, and so you say Duolingo. Pretty much everybody would be like, oh, I'm on Duolingo, and they take out their phone and start showing the streaks and stuff like that. And one, obviously feel really proud, but also you feel like, oh, I have to put on a good show. Like, that nervousness just kind of keeps increasing. And I can tell you, I had sleepless nights before I went on stage. Because the presentation has to be on point, and so we worked really hard on that. Ibrahim from Digitas and I were presenting together. It's one part of it, right? The deck needs to look a certain manner and no typos, and we were all like, fine tooth comb. Because if you have a typo on a Duolingo deck, I can't. You're done for. You'll be roasted. You'll go viral. And so that was one part. But the other part was this whole pressure of being on stage. And another thing is, we all speak English very fluently, but it's not a first language. And so whenever there is a slight, and you also want to be very well prepared. So you end up in a way not just speaking like in a regular conversation, but you do end up memorizing bits and pieces of your deck. And so if you slip up, chances are that you'll fumble.
Yeah,
You might even, revert to mother tongue in that case. That was something else that was giving me nightmares.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was like, I can't fumble. And then I realized that, like, I watched a lot of these conversations, a lot of these talks over there. Some very interesting talks. And I realized, like, it's okay. Be
Yeah.
natural,
Yeah.
talk. If you fumble, it's okay. It's
Plus, you're in France. It's not even their first
not their
language.
first language. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's a foreign language even for them.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And thankfully, like, the whole thing went off without a hitch. It was very well received.
Right.
We had these plushies that you were throwing, sorry, not putting one here, but you were throwing them into the audience. And again, like, we had so many people coming and saying, love Duolingo, love to speak, all that stuff. So that experience was great. Like, there's just the speaking experience. I think that was an invaluable experience.
Right.
But the other thing which I saw, and this is like a purely objective, take a step back, not from Karan's perspective, but from an Indian's perspective at a global,
Right.
at agency, conglomeration, whatever, is how much work we have to do as a country to get to the level where a lot of these Western countries are. And I don't mean in the quality of creativity.
Right.
I mean that in our ability to show them.
Right.
I feel very strongly that the quality of our creative is amazing. It's great simply because of the diversity of the people that are there. Right?
Correct.
Like, the kind of insights that we come up with
Yeah.
are as good or bad as what anybody else in the world is coming up with. I feel where we lack is we are not at a position to be able to take credit or to be like, this is what was happening, this is what we did, this is what we achieved, and tell that in a very nice way. Like,
Yeah.
show and tell quality.
Yeah. The
That's
storytelling.
storytelling.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting, right? Because these are the best storytellers
Yeah.
of India.
Correct.
But when it comes to hyping ourselves up
Yeah.
or building ourselves up and saying, look at how amazing this work I did is,
Yeah.
I feel a little shy. I don't
Yeah.
know why this is, but I've been seeing this a lot, even in my agencies, even myself, with like, brands in the country. When it comes to like taking full credit of what we've achieved, it's a lot. We're all like, nee, it's okay.
Yeah.
Just by the way we did it, and it's great, but why? We should be on the front foot and say, yes, this is extremely difficult to do, this is extremely tough to do, but we cracked an insight and we did this, and look at what we've achieved. At a country level, I feel we're a little
Demure.
humble.
Yeah.
Demure, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the latest.
The word.
Yeah, demure.
Yeah. On that note, thank you so much for talking to us, Karan.
Thank you for having me. It was really, really nice.
No. 3, 2, 1.
The more I mean, okay, sorry. Do I? Talk about what they ask you to do. So again, and that. You want to do it?